What's up, y'all, and welcome. I'm sure we all saw the murder of George Floyd. I'm sure we all see everything going on around us in this country today and the state and the climate of which this country is in. And personally, I'm not going to be talking about my experience that I've experienced, not just with racism, but also with police brutality. It hits home for me, and I could tell you it's quite traumatizing. I don't want to talk on that. I want to talk on how America and Wall Street and some of these companies are profiting off these police brutalities. And not just that, I want to also talk about how these police officers are able to get away with what they do and can continue with what they do because it's embedded in the system itself. But before I get into all that for this video, I want to take a moment of silence for all the people that have been murdered at the hands of police. I want to touch on first, how does police brutality cost you and I? What happens when a police brutality case occurs? A lot of the times we always see the big settlements, the big money that gets paid out, but what is the true cost of this? So usually, local and state governments at the beginning of the year budget for police brutality and misconduct. This budget is called judgments and settlements, and some states and local governments take out insurance policies. And just like any of the insurance policy that you would take out for your car, it covers an X amount of money. So some states will take out $500,000 just in case anything happens, and that premium that they pay for that insurance policy gets back to us, that we the taxpayers pay. Now, what's been going on lately is a lot of these states and local governments have been going into high debts due to the absurd amounts they have to pay in settlements due to these police brutalities. Now, what they usually do is, just like anybody else, whenever you take out a premium for your insurance, whenever a crash does occur or anything happens that damages your car, usually just call up your insurance and they pay and cover the cost. That's what you pay. That's the reason why you pay every month. But lately, states have been exceeding what they budget for the year due to police brutality cases. And what they usually do after they exceed that amount is they issue something that is called police brutality bonds. And a bond is simply just a loan. It's an IOU at a set interest rate between the borrower and the lender. So let's take, for an example, Chicago. Chicago, between the years of 2010 to 2017, took out a bond, pretty much a loan, of over $700 million. Not only this, but they also paid an interest on that loan of $1 billion. $1 billion in interest payments between those years, bringing the total to $1.7 billion. Now, who pays for all of this? Well, it's you and I. We not only pay the police through our tax payments, but we also pay for these police to brutalize us, to dehumanize us. There is no incentive whatsoever for these officers to be liable. So who are these people giving these local and state governments the money to actually fund these things? Well, you guessed it. It is your Wells Fargo's, your Bank of America. These are the banks, these are the corporations that are profiting off of police brutality. The fact that these local and state governments are issuing out these loans knowing it is coming at the cost of taxpayers itself, I don't know how you could justify that. Next thing I want to touch on is something called qualified immunity. And what qualified immunity is pretty much for you to actually win a case against a police officer, that same exact incident, exact incident has to have occurred in that police department for you to win. That means you have to prove that at some point in time, the exact incident that happened to you has happened before in the past. And this is why also a lot of people don't even go and pursue trying to sue the police department or try to even get money for what's happened to them, or why they don't even win. Like it's just so it's messed up on all levels. Now let's flow it up. Let's go up to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice usually investigates when a police department is in violation of people's civil rights, meaning they use force, whatever it could be. Whenever there is a violation of civil rights, usually the Department of Justice is supposed to enter an established agreement, something called the consent decree, and the DOJ comes up with this agreement for these departments to follow and to reform and restructure the police department to reduce the amount of civil rights being violated. And a lot of cities follow this, but it's very expensive for the cities to follow, so they don't usually want this to happen. And what occurs is, after the city and the police department has followed those steps and everything, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, usually lifts that decree from the department. And data is shown as soon as the decree lifts off, police brutality goes back to all-time highs. In 2017, Jeff Sessions, when he came into office under Donald Trump, saw the amount of decrees that the DOJ had issued to all the police departments and said, and contested all of them and said, these consent decrees affects the morale of the police officers. What? Like, how can a department you know that is in violation of people's civil rights affect the morale of police? Help that make sense. None of this makes sense. It's just so frustrating that this is still happening in 2020. The whole system is set up for us to fail, and it also affects you. It affects all of us. All of us. And this is why it's important for all of us to speak out. Speak out because it's wrong. As a human being, it's wrong. I want y'all to take the time to really sympathize and ask yourself, if that was your mom, your dad, or your brother, whose neck was under their man's knee, how would you feel? Would you feel the same way you feel right now? Would you be silent? Would you say nothing? Would you feel no emotion? Would you just tune out and just go back to your world like nothing happened? Because I don't think so. If you made it this far, thank you. It's definitely been a rough couple of weeks, and I want to close it out with a quote that says, "Courage is not the fear of absence, but the awareness that something is greater." And that something is for us to be treated like human beings. And we have to be the change. We have to be the change we want to see. And I'm using this to fuel me for the change I want to see, not just in my community, but in the world in general. And we all need to come together as one. Understand money. My people, we got to understand our money. America only understands money until we start getting our money and building our own. That's when we'll have the power we need. But with that being said, thank you. I've left in the description places you could donate, petitions you could sign, Say something, do something, be the change, take the action, take the initiative, have the courage, because that's what's needed right now. Do not look to the leadership of the president, because there is no leadership. Thank you all. Be safe out there and have a good one.